Welcome to the Wrestling Club podcast. I hope that you're ready to listen because I'm about to tell my story, and I'm going to rewind all the way back to when I was in college. That's kind of where it starts, I guess. That's where we're going to start. And like I said in the intro episode, my dream is to have a lot of people's stories shared on this podcast. And so I'm going to lead by example and start by sharing my story. I was in college and feeling ambitious to do the Couch to 5K. And I had been training using this app, doing so good. I had one more day left to finish it. So, and I was at my parents' house. I was home for the summer actually at this point. It was the day that I was leaving to study abroad. I went out for a run, and like a mile in, mind you, the day before I had run for 30 minutes straight, no problem. Like a mile in, I was dying, had to lay down on the side of the road. But I got up, I finished my run, I get back home, I tell my parents, that was really weird, that was really hard. I did it yesterday, it seemed to go fine. And their solution to the problem was that I was just nervous about traveling. This was not my first time going to Europe. This was not my first time traveling. I'm pretty adventurous. I don't really get nervous. So I didn't think that they knew what they were talking about. And long story short, that wasn't what was wrong with me. But I get on the plane to Spain. I go study abroad. I was pretty sick the whole time I was there, honestly. I started just feeling really nauseous. My heart was beating really hard all the time. Beating really fast. In the mornings, I started to realize that I needed extra time to get ready because I knew I was going to have to lay down. By the time we got to the end of the program, I hadn't gone on any trips with my classmates. I did go visit one friend, but I kind of just hung out at my host family's house. I was not feeling well while I was there. On the way to one of my final exams, I walked up the stairs, literally just threw up in the middle of the floor. I'm like, okay, something is not right here. So I get home, I tell my parents all of this. I'm like, okay, it's probably going to get better. Like I'm back at home. I'm back in my normal environment. And we had a beach house. So, I got back from studying abroad in the summer. I'm going to the beach. Our beach house has 3 stories. The only option from getting to the bottom to the top where the kitchen is taking the stairs. And at this point, it had gotten to where if I knew I had to climb a flight of stairs, I started to dread it because I would get so out of breath. And finally, I'm like, Mom, something's not right about this. So I go to see the doctor, and being the yapper that I am, I tell her all of my symptoms, which I'm going to spare you the details, but I have all these random symptoms, and I just tell her, look, I just want you to know all these things about me. And she's like, that is every symptom of like an overactive thyroid. So she feels my thyroid and she's like, do you mind if I call the residents in here? And she calls them in and they're like, wow, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. I'm like, guys, am I okay? So we do some thyroid testing and find out that I have Graves' disease. We start the treatment for that. Turns out I have thyroid issues. Okay. I proceed with the journey of trying to get that regulated. So I have an overactive thyroid. They're telling me that it's not good to be on the medicine that I'm on for a long period of time. So I take it for like a year. We try to pull off of it and my thyroid doesn't act like it's supposed to. So I keep taking the medicine. Like 3 years in, they're like, you really shouldn't take this long term. If you want to like do something called a radioactive iodine ablation, you can do that. It will kill your thyroid, and then we can manage your thyroid by just giving you the amount that you need instead of trying to work against what your thyroid is doing. So I kept that in the back of my mind, and me and Tyler end up getting engaged. We're going to get married. I see my doctor and he's like, if you ever want to have kids, it's a lot easier for us to manage this if you just don't have a thyroid at all. And I knew one day I wanted kids, and I'm a planner, a header. I like to think long term. So I was like, okay, it's been 3 years. Maybe I should think about doing this. So I make the appointment for February. This is 2 months after I've gotten married. But as I was preparing for this appointment, he told me, you need to get on birth control because you cannot get pregnant after you take this radiation, basically. So and he was saying you need to have some form of birth control that is continuous release. So he told me my options, and I picked the one that I thought would be the least painful. And I end up getting an IUD. And then I go forward with the ablation in February of 2021. And I remember the girl walks in the room with a hazmat suit on and this iron little tiny jar. And she's like, here you go. Here's the pill. And I looked at her and I was like, well, do you want me to touch it? Because you're not touching it. And she's like, yeah, it won't hurt you. I'm like, somehow this is not making sense. But, I'm trying to trust the experts here, because I did not go to medical school. I did not go to nursing school. I didn't go to any school to certify me to speak about what I should be touching in regards to radiation or not. So I get the little canister, I open it up, I take the pill, put it in my mouth and swallow it. And they're like, okay, when you go home, don't sleep in the same bed as your husband. Don't kiss him. Don't share food with him. Don't even pee in the same toilet as him. Don't go to work for a week. And I was like, guys, I don't really know if this is like, are we sure that what I did was a good idea? They're like, oh yeah, don't worry. So I trust them and I don't worry. And over the next few months, because I'm like taking this thing that's making my thyroid disintegrate, my levels start dropping and I go into hypothyroidism. And that's where I became familiar with depression. It wasn't really deep or anything, but it did help me build compassion for people that have depression. And I started to have all the opposite symptoms of what I had when I had an overactive thyroid. So, me and Tyler we're going through our first year of marriage, and our whole thing, we kind of jokingly would say it, because people love to ask you about your next phase of life when you're like barely in the current phase of life. So people would always ask us when we wanted to have kids, and we had just started saying like, we're going to wait 5 years, not for 5 years. So, we're just living our married lives. We buy a house, we get a new dog, which is our little Clee baby doggy, and we both start new jobs. So we've got a lot of transition going on in our life. And I remember thinking to myself, I cannot imagine having a kid that would just be too much. I'm not ready for that. And I don't know exactly when I prayed this prayer, but I know it was in our house that we live in now. And I remember standing in the kitchen dining area and thinking, Lord, I really want to be desperate for you. Like I feel like I sit in church services and I hear people talking about suffering and hardship and like the valleys of life. And it's not that I want to experience that, but I feel like there's this desperation that I'm lacking. And I sure did ask for it. I said, Lord, make me desperate for you. So I pray that prayer and I move on with my life. Me and Tyler, we're working our jobs. We're being a married couple. We're having fun. We're learning a lot, probably arguing a lot. He always says that we have a lot of practice in conflict resolution. So we're managing all of those newlywed things. And I started to, the further we got out from all the transitions of life, the more I was like, okay, I think I'm ready for the next thing. I could have a kid. Like, it's not that I'm like dying for it, but if we started to move in that direction, like if it happened, I think we could handle it. So I started having those thoughts and like jokingly bringing them up, feeling it out with Tyler. And he always was like, no, we said 5 years. No, he shut it down so hard, so fast. And the first time I remember crying about it, being like, trying to be like, dude, I'm actually serious. Like, can we have a conversation about this? We had just been at the lake for 4th of July. We were in the truck on the way home. His sister had a newborn baby there. And it was like the best thing to me, just getting to spend the whole weekend with this family that was in the newborn phase. And I think I probably tried to like bring it up to Tyler and he just shut it down, and I was feeling really unheard and really discouraged and out of control, and control is something that I love. So that was the first time I remember being upset to him about it. And nothing changed for a long time. Like, I'm a recovering spoiled brat, and I like to get my way, and I'm pretty persistent when I don't get my way. So I did not let up, and I would just casually mention it all the time in front of our families, in front of our friends, like when we were alone. I was always working it into the conversation, and he wasn't budging. And he also, not only did he not want to have a kid, he didn't even want to talk about having a kid. So we really started to, it was a real point of tension between us for a long time. It was in the spring of 2023. I remember sitting on the porch FaceTiming my coach from worship school, sweet Abby Dingus. And I don't remember why we were talking about it. I think at this point I was really frustrated with Tyler. So that's kind of how the conversation came up. But what we ended up processing was that I don't trust God to write my story because, and I remember articulating to her for the first time ever, the worst thing that could ever happen to me is that I can't have a child. It's the idea that I won't get pregnant and I won't have a baby and it won't live, all that whole process. That is the worst thing that could ever happen to me. And as soon as I said it, my red flags were waving because I know that's not the right way to feel. But thankfully, I'm not afraid of being honest. And when I say things out loud like that, it helps me know how to move forward with those thoughts. So I knew that I had a little bit of a problem and I needed to work on maybe breaking down this idol of motherhood in my life, because it's not something that you can control. And the fact that I couldn't control my husband, I couldn't control at that point even my own body. There was literally nothing I could do but just keep waiting and learning to trust that God's plan for my life, his timing for my life is the best. That was in April of 2023. And then shortly after that, not literally, but literally, all my friends got pregnant. And my coworkers got pregnant. And my Pilates instructors, multiple, got pregnant. It was everywhere, all around me, all the time. And it was so hard in a way that I have never experienced and could not outthink. I couldn't rationalize with. People would tell me that they were pregnant and it would make my jaws start watering like I was going to throw up, or make my stomach clench. It's immediately I just lose whatever's happening in the world. And I'm I have to get out of here. I have to get out of here because I know I'm going to start crying. And on top of that, who wants to feel like that when someone is sharing news with you that is supposed to be celebrated? And I know I'm at least going to discipline myself to celebrate, because what I have learned is that celebrating is a discipline. It does come easily sometimes, but sometimes it is something that we practice because we have the choice if we do or not. So a lot of my friends started getting pregnant, and I remember talking to my coworkers about it because it's easy to confide in your coworkers. You're with them all the time. They end up knowing a lot about your life, but at the end of the day, when you leave, they're not in your personal life. So the girls that I worked with, we were all very honest with each other and just very open. So I remember telling them about it. And then a few months later, one of them got pregnant, and I was happy. Obviously I was happy for her. Especially because she had a miscarriage and it was really hard. And I'm not ever glad for someone to suffer. So I was really happy for her, and it was hard. And then I don't remember the time in between, but another one of my coworkers got pregnant, and she didn't tell me for a long time. And then when she ended up telling me, she said that she didn't want to tell me because she knew how I felt. So I got boxed into this corner of like, I can't talk to anyone. I can't, I mean, I don't want to say their names. Some of them will come and they will share their side of of my story. They'll share their side of my story. But I got this friend and this friend and this friend, and they're all pregnant. So I can't talk about this pregnant friend to this friend because she's also pregnant. And I can't talk about this with this friend because they're all pregnant. Like, how am I going to cry about wanting to be pregnant to people who are pregnant? And it's just, my husband doesn't even want to try to get me pregnant. So how, like, I really just need to shut up is what needs to happen. It was so confusing and frustrating. And I felt like I was looking around. Oh gosh, at this phase of my life, I started keeping a list of every person that was pregnant. I literally kept a list on my phone that I would look at all the time. And it created this, I just developed this anxiety that when I left my house or went on social media, if I just lived, I was going to encounter something where I would be faced with the fact that I am not pregnant. And I am not a mom, and there is no path to motherhood for me right now. So like I said, this was creating a lot of tension between me and Tyler. And finally, he agreed to come and talk to my therapist with me. Miss Anita, one of my favorite people, has really impacted my life greatly. So I'll always be thankful for all of the hours she has listened to me talk. But he agreed to come and talk with me to her. And as we talked, she had each of us share our side of how we felt about this decision and what we were doing to arrive at this decision. And I remember seeing, she had both of our sides written out on the board. And when I looked at Tyler's reasons, which he had never shared with me, even as I had tried to have conversations, I realized that there was part of his decision that was very selfish. But there was also a part that was considering our marriage, me, our future, our children. And it did give me compassion for his perspective, but it didn't change his mind. So we just went on through the summer, June, July. There's still more and more pregnancy announcements. Towards the end, there was like 2 weeks of a pregnancy announcement and then a week with 2 in one. And I felt like bombs were being dropped on my life, which is so dramatic. And I knew it was dramatic, and I didn't want to talk to anybody about it because I felt very stupid and very childish, like just immature about the way that I felt about all of this. And I went to one of my friend's houses, and she told me that she was pregnant, and I texted Tyler. And when I got home, I was like, I cannot do this. Like, and at this point, I had stopped asking. I knew his answer wasn't going to change and there was nothing I could do. But I felt like a crazy person. And he was like, you can go get your IUD out. Like, he was like, obviously, this is way harder for you than it is for me. And it's not worth it for us to keep moving like this. Which, before he told me that, people literally gave me the advice to get my IUD out without telling him. Multiple married people told me, they're like, that's what I did. I'm like, a child birthed out of a lie? No, that is not the option for me. So I did not do that. I did wait until we were on the same page. I make the appointment on 9/11. Go get my IUD out, and I'm feeling pretty good. Pretty excited, but also like hyper aware of the issues that can take place. And it's really interesting. And this is, looking back, this is what shows me that I have always idolized motherhood, is I would be the friend in college who would, when we would talk about, when we would dream with our friends about having babies, I would say, but statistically, one of us is going to have a hard time. This doesn't go well for everybody. There's 6 of us sitting here. Like, someone's going to have trouble. Just always aware of the reality that motherhood does not come easily for all. even when I look back on my childhood, I've always made decisions based on my future children, which is, it sounds wise, but to be thinking about that and having that motivate your decisions all the time, I don't know that it was out of a healthy place. Even now I can't stop doing it. I'm always considering how the things that I do today will affect me as a mom or affect my future children. So we start trying to get pregnant, and the very first month, I get my period, and I was absolutely devastated. Obviously it takes time to get pregnant, but it was like I had received the worst news I could possibly receive. And I remember my doctor telling me, like, if it takes longer than 6 months, just go ahead and come in. Don't worry. Like, you don't have to wait till a year. We can go ahead and start to test and see what's going on. But I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to be ridiculous. And the second month, not pregnant. The third month, not pregnant. Still, like, at this point, my friends are getting towards the end of their due dates. So I'm still not wanting to talk to them about it. And then they start having their babies, and it's very beautiful and very sweet to watch them step into motherhood and to get to hold their babies and like see this new phase of life beginning for them. And it was in the beginning of 2024, we had a worship team night at our church, and one of our friends shared that she kind of said something that gave me a clue that they had their own infertility journey. So I asked her if we could get coffee, and my life changed from that point forward. And I'm trying to spare all the details that I know we're going to hash out when she comes onto the show. But I remember talking to her and opening up and saying, it's only been 4 months, but it feels like the end of the world. It feels like there's something really heavy. And I remember praying in that conversation, because at that point in their journey, they had decided to adopt. And I remember praying, Lord, if you put this girl in my life to show me that this is not going to happen for me and adoption is my way forward, I'm not okay with that. But she's been such a gift. And on this side of my healing, if the Lord calls me to adopt, I will be perfectly fine with that. And I will be grateful, and I'm not worried about it. But at that point, I was still very unhealthy and had not come to realize the layers that needed to be cut open so that they could be re-healed. And she's the one who really helped me start to open up emotionally and start to understand and be validated in some of the hard parts of trying to get pregnant. Even if it doesn't take long, it's still disappointing in how you can walk through that roller coaster without walking away from your faith. So that's kind of how our journey began. And the months kept passing, and I started to really wrestle with God. And on the next episode, I'll talk more about that long wrestle, that long journey, and the things that I have learned since me and Tyler started on this. So stay tuned if you want to hear the rest of the story, and I'll see you on the next episode.